Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We are from group 5. Our group members are first Genis Arivanny Putris Karsari, second Raden Senny Indah Ariantini, third Azmi Auliana, fourth Ranti Aryani, and last me Anita Septi Laraswati. In this occasion, we would like to present about who are we assessing, placement, needs, analysis, and diagnosis. The subtitle of this presentation are which assessment tools that can help us to get to know our students and why is this important, and getting to know who our students are and how best to help them learn, including assessment for placement, needs analysis, and diagnostic. Now, let's get started to the first material about which assessment tools that can help us to get to know our students and why is this important. Alright, there are questions of assessment approaches and practices that can help us to better understand our students' learning, such as what is each student in my class bringing to the learning of the language, how does each of my students intend to use the language in the future, and what are my students' learning goals. Fox and Cheng in 2007 stated that when we recognize the unique and varied cognitive, cultural, educational, and emotional differences of our students, we are in a far better position to address gaps in their knowledge, skill, and understanding and develop their strength in learning. Examine the assessment tools in relation to a chronology that often applies in our use of classroom assessment. Although a placement test, needs analysis, and diagnostic assessment may be used at any point in a course, we often apply these tools at the beginning of a new course to shape the content and learning outcomes of our courses. Alright, that's all from me. The next material will be presented by Genis.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Genis Arivanny Putris and my student's number is 1921221118. Alright, assessment for placement. Placement tests, as their name implies, have the purpose of placing students at levels of a pre-existing program in those programs with a defined structure and progression. In some contexts, they are used for grouping students based on shared characteristics, example, levels of proficiency, backgrounds, interests, goals, and needs. Placement tests occur in both higher stakes and lower stakes settings. For example, in a less structured program which defines classes and levels of instruction based on whoever enrolls, we know that when we are working with students who have similar characteristics, it is easier for us as a teacher to shape our teaching for the common good. It is not unusual, however, to find that although the students are placed on the basis of some shared characteristics, they may differ considerably in others. These are the differences that we address through ongoing assessment practice in our classroom. Whether we are working with students in secondary school or college, adolescents or adults, in English as second language ESL or English as a foreign language EFL settings, the placement test result of one students are usually considered in relation to the first is the other students who are enrolled on the program at the same time, and the second is the overall spread of students' scores across the program.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Raden Ariantini. My student's number is 192122127. I'm from the class. In this nice occasion, I would like to discuss about needs analysis. But now we go to the definition first. According to Staffelbeam et al. At 1985, needs assessment or needs analysis has been a revealing interest of teachers and program administrators across educational levels and contexts for many years. Because it is a process that helps one to identify and examine both values and information that inform teaching and learning, and also it provides direction for making decisions. The main purpose of needs analysis is to elicit information about individuals in our classes or program in order to inform our course designs decisions. For example, we may consider that the purpose of our needs assessment is to identify gaps or discrepancies between a student's current level of performance and the intended level of performance. If this is our purpose, we may typically elicit information on our students' strengths and weaknesses so that we can address the weaknesses and work on developing their abilities, skills, and proficiency to reach the desired or the intended level. Knowing more about our students will help us to identify the activities and experiences that have the greatest potential of supporting their learning. The more we know, the more effective we will be in shaping our teaching to meet our students' needs and support their language development. When needs analysis is systematic and well designed, it will help us to prioritize the activities in our classes. Also, it helps us to answer the difficult questions that are implicit in each of the decisions we make as we orchestrate the learning in our classrooms. Here are the questions. The first is, what is the most useful activity for these students or this student in this class at this time for this purpose? The second is, how will the activity help to achieve the intended learning outcomes of my course? And the last is, where should I begin? What should I do first? What is the most necessary? Okay, now let's move to the roles of needs analysis. There are several roles of needs analysis. The first one is we may view our needs analysis as a means of eliciting and supporting students' participation in selection of and emphasis on class activities, topic, and procedures. We may consider their participation in choosing the directions of the course as a way of increasing its meaningfulness. By recognizing our students' interests, elicited through needs assessment, we encourage the development of their personal sense of responsibility for learning, improve goal setting, and increase awareness of the role of self-assessment. And the second is we may also consider a needs analysis as an analytical. It means that will help us to define what we should do next. Our goal is to encourage development. And from this perspective, development is the best achieved when we have a more precise understanding of what a student brings to learning so that we can map out the incremental activities to support development. The third one is we may view needs analysis as a diagnostic process, which identifies what is missing in a student's learning that might place the students at risk. With regard to the needs analysis functions, after we see something that is lacking in students or their learning, we can improve it at the next opportunity because we already know what is needed to improve it. And the last, how to identify students' needs. The first step in a needs analysis is to identify the kind of information about our students that would be the most helpful to know. We have decided what we would like to measure. We can begin to operationalize the measurement in concrete terms as tests, checklist, questionnaire, interview, journal responses, and survey. I think that's enough of my presentation. Hopefully it could be useful for us. Thank you for your nice attention. Sorry if I made many mistakes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Azmi Auliana. My student's number is 192122133. Here I want to continue the presentations. My part is about diagnostic assessment. Right, what is a diagnostic assessment? Diagnosis assessment is testing that occurs before the instructions to determine what students already know about the concept and skills to be covered by instruction. A diagnostic assessment can also be highly specialist testing concerned with persistent or recurring learning difficulties that have not been resolved. For example, a diagnosis assessment in the classroom. In a conversation class, a diagnosis assessment can be used to get at the micro level issues that interfere with an individual student's comprehensibility when speaking a new language. For example, in a student's conversation, we can diagnose when in the conversations, uh, for example, he has difficulty in pronouncing a word or something else. Another example in English for academic purposes class. Diagnosis assessment helps to diagnose individual student set skill. This format help to help to help the teacher to diagnose the student's skill. And also this format help a teacher to diagnose her students. There are active, somewhat active, or not active. We just checklist one of them. Does not, for example, does not engage or respond to prompt. We can just checklist one of the choice.
Okay, now I will continue the material about diagnostic assessment. As you can see here, there are three approaches in the diagnostic assessment. There is learning log, test retest, and then diagnostic conference. Okay, the first one is learning log. Basically, in the learning log, students keep a personal record of their work during the course. After completing an assignment for the course, they respond to these three questions in writing. The first one is, what was easy about this assignment? And then, what was the most difficult? And the last one is, what do I need to learn if I'm going to do this better next week? And then, after that, the teachers collect the learning logs and review responses alongside the completed assignment. So, what is its diagnostic potential? This approach allows us to relate the students' awareness of challenges and difficulties in completing an assignment with their actual performance. It also helps us to identify and address specific areas of weakness and then helps the students to develop more self-awareness and then skills in self-assessment. Okay, and then the next approach is test retest. Okay, so the test retest administer the same or similar tests at intervals during a course. So the students just take the same test at the beginning, midpoint, and then at the end of the course to document changes over time. And then the teachers can draw on tests from the internet or textbooks and so on, which are relevant to the particular course they are teaching. And at intervals, the teachers administer the test and keep a running record of how each student is doing. Right then, what is its diagnostic potential? So it is depending upon what the test is assessing, and the information in the running record can guide decisions we make about supplementary support or next steps. And then there are many useful tests available on the internet which will be of use to teachers. And then the last approach is diagnostic conference. Okay, in this approach, students meet one-on-one or in a small group with the teacher. Teachers then ask students to do something with language. For example, to read aloud a short excerpt from a story or a newspaper clipping, or to share a written response to a question, to discuss a reading assigned for the course. And then during the conference, teachers can provide immediate feedback to support students' learning and encourage students to think about their work in other and more complex way. It is important to keep consistent notes on observation during a conference and or to collect evidence of students' performance, for example, written assignments, recorded read aloud, or discussion. And then, what is its diagnostic potential? So, the conference offers teachers an opportunity to note specific strengths and then weaknesses and record observations which can then guide and focus next steps in instruction. Conferences need not take much time. If they occur frequently, over time they can be an important source of ongoing diagnostic information about the student's learning. The next diagnostic test is diagnostic assessment across a program. Although this diagnostic assessment are less common than the use of diagnostic assessment within individual in a classroom, in some instances, diagnostic assessment may be used for all the students in a program. So, the diagnostic assessment across the program is used for all the students in a program. For example, we can see here an example is provided by Fox 2009. In a context where the traditional placement assessment was replaced by external proficiency tests which were unrelated to the program's EAP curriculum. Although students' placement in the program was dictated by the external proficiency test scores, teachers within the EAP program were provided with post-entry diagnostic information about each of their students through the administration of a diagnostic test of all the students in the program. Then the information supported the identification of groups and the development of targeted activities by group for teachers in the program. Okay, then the last diagnostic is diagnostic assessment across a system. This diagnostic assessment most often occurs after a student has been admitted to their program. New acronym has been popularized to capture trends in using diagnostic assessment early in a student's academic career in order to identify areas of risk which might lead to failure or impede academic success, and to identify specific learning options to address these areas of risk. The name applied to diagnostic assessment of language risk factors is post-admission English language assessment. There are an increasing number of such assessments in many English medium contexts. where a large number of international students are entering post-secondary institutions, or where student populations are becoming increasingly culturally and linguistically diverse. For example, in Australia, New Zealand, and then Canada. And can see at both Auckland or New Zealand and Melbourne Australia University, PELA tests are administered to admit undergraduate students. At Auckland University, the Diagnostic English Language Needs Assessment or DELNA is taken by students who have been admitted to their degree programs. So that's all from me about diagnostic assessment. Thank you for your attention.